All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the CV Update. After a 2-week break, I am back as the host. And as usual, we had another week packed with sports news, including the Celtics making a major trade yesterday, the ongoing NBA playoffs, which featured some incredible games last night, the Red Sox continuing to defy expectations for the season, the European Championships for soccer, some Patriots news from minicamp, and the NHL playoffs, which are also ongoing. We will cover all of that. And I've been out the last 2 weeks. And this week, actually, my usual co-host, Rohan Venkatesh, is out. So Ujan is back for a third straight week as the co-host. Ujan, how are you doing today, man? It's great to have you as the co-host again.
Yeah, it's great to be back again. As you say, we've had a lot of action, both in the States and across the pond with the Euros. And of course, the NBA playoffs are heating up into the Final Four. The NHL playoffs are in their Final Four. So, it's a great time to be a sports fan. That's for sure.
Totally agreed. And yeah, let's start with the Celtics first, man. Like, what a big trade yesterday. I mean, Kemba Walker, all-star last season for the Celtics. They signed him to a 4-year contract prior to the start in the July of 2019. And he was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder yesterday, in addition to the 16th overall pick from this season and the 2025 second-round pick in exchange for Al Horford, 2023 second-round pick, and center Moses Brown. And I just want to go into a little bit of the statistics. So Walker last season, due to a new issue, an ongoing issue, he didn't play in back-to-back games last season. He did average 19.3 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 4.9 assists in 43 games, but he did miss the last 2 games in the series against the Brooklyn Nets, on which the Celtics lost 4-1. So, I mean, I just want to bring up Al Horford, 14.2 points, 6.7 rebounds, 3.4 assists in 28 games. And Moses Brown, intriguing prospect, 21 years old, 8.6 points a game and 8.9 rebounds a game in 43 games last season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I guess let's just talk about this initially. What are your thoughts on this trade? Because, I mean, the Celtics definitely get worse talent-wise with this trade. Like, I think all of us agree. So what do you think? Like, do you like that they got the financial flexibility in exchange for a drop in talent? What are your thoughts?
It really depends on what they do with the additional financial flexibility, like you said. Yes, they saved in salary and I guess in cap space, but it's a matter of what are they going to do with that cap space? Like, are you going to go and get like a superstar to complement Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, like they've tried to do for a few years now, let's be honest? Or are they just trying to have center the team around Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown and have some players kind of around him? Now the question, right?
But haven't they already kind of done that already? Like, they've already built the team. At this point, it's Jaylen and Jason's team, right? So they've already kind of tried to build it. I mean, clearly they did a bad job with the last season because they were the 7th seed. And I know Jaylen was out for the playoff series, but I mean, even with Brown, they were a 7th seed. So I'm not going to use that as an excuse. But I mean, one thing that kind of worries me a little bit from what I'm hearing is like they're using that money to re-sign Evan Fournier. And I don't mind Fournier as a player, but the money he's going to ask, and considering the type of player he is, he's a decent role player at best. Let's be real. Like, I mean, in Orlando, that's what he was. He was averaging like 19 points, and he can make the threes. He can score for you, like probably average 15 points. But I don't want Evan Fournier as a third option on this team. If that's what's going to happen, just be prepared for another season like this one, right? I mean, I don't want Evan Fournier back on that type of money. Maybe if he takes a little bit of a pay cut, but I don't think he's going to. So I agree. I don't know what they're going to do with that cap space at this point. I mean, do you think they'd actually go and try to sign another free agent like next year, or like do a trade? Like, what's going to happen now?
I think for me, the first thing they need to do is like assess what the point guard situation is, because you had Kemba Walker and before they had Kyrie Irving, which we all know how that went. But I would say the best point guard since Brad Stevens came along must be Isaiah Thomas. And that's saying a lot, I will say. I mean,
I mean, I think Kyrie, I mean, even though it didn't end well, I think Kyrie it was like at least the first year with Kyrie was pretty good. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, and then he got injured and then missed the playoff run. And then, of course, you had Terry Rozier. I mean, let's be honest, Terry Rozier was good, but we can't compare Kyrie Irving to Terry Rozier. Like, let's be honest. But I think in terms of like performance-wise, like somebody who would kind of like give their heart and soul for the team, like there was no doubt Isaiah Thomas was up there. as like someone who like pretty much give it their all for this team, point guard wise. So I just feel like it's a matter of, are you gonna find like the next Isaiah Thomas as the point guard, or are you gonna kind of use the team to get some role player, like use the cap space to get role players around Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. I always say like that you need to have like a big three. Like for example, Brooklyn, you have your Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and you're pretty much centering the team around those three. Now you have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Like who's gonna be that third guy? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I don't really know like who that third guy can be because it needs to be honestly like it seems like an imperfect fit sometimes, like Jaylen and Jason. Like I mean, it's more that they were sort of drafted back-to-back years by the Celtics, so they've been sort of paired together not by choice. It's because they were sort of like forced, and by force I mean they were just like they were both drafted onto the same team and they're playing together. That's what happened. It's not like Jason Tatum chose to like come to Boston because Jaylen Brown was there, or like vice versa. Like so, yeah, like it sort of feels like an imperfect fit to me right now. But I think like a guy like Damian Lillard, I don't know like how much possibility there is, but that's the type of guy I want because to be honest, like while Tatum is by far the best player on this team, like no one's going to question that. I just don't know if he has that type of vocal leadership in him to really like beat that type of like I don't know, like a guy like a Lillard, I think would be perfect for this team in that role, like a point guard. I know, and he also doesn't seem that happy in Portland right now. So I'm kind of optimistic that the Celtics, with Brad Stevens now in charge instead of Danny Ainge, I think maybe like a fresh voice. Like I mean, he already made one trade we saw, so I mean, I don't think Brad Stevens is afraid of making moves. Like this is a pretty bold move to make as your first move of president of basketball operations. That's like getting rid of your all-star point guard from last season. So I would take a guy like Damian Lillard because I just don't think Tatum's the type of guy who really like, I don't know, like, are you getting the sense from him? Like he's sort of the type of guy who'll show up, he'll score 50 or whatever, but I just don't know if he like loves the game or like cares about it like the same way that these other like stars do that want to win. Like, do you kind of get the sense from him? He's a bit nonchalant at times.
yeah, I think it maybe just his personality in the sense that he's not really much of like a vocal person. Like even if you hear him in like in your post game interviews, like with the with the broadcasters, like he doesn't seem like he doesn't seem like super excited after scoring like 50 points or 60 points or what have you. And he's just like, I scored 50 points and we're on to the next game. I mean, it's a good attitude to have. Like, I'm not gonna fault him for saying, yeah, we're on to the next game kind of thing. But it seems, but like I'm not gonna judge him based on like TV interviews. Let me put that out there. But it's just a matter of if he's gonna be that nonchalant in the TV interview, he's probably not. He's not gonna be super like his voice won't necessarily stand out in the locker room, at least in my opinion, because he's 4 years in the league now. So like versus like a veteran leader who's been around the league for like 9-10 years, like who would you listen to? Like now that you have Al Horford around, he's more of like he's a veteran of the league, but would you necessarily call him a leader, like per se?
I don't really know if you can call him a good leader anymore because I mean, the last two teams he was on were probably two of the most dysfunctional before Oklahoma City, of course. Like, I mean, he was on the 18 and 19 Celtics. Wasn't he a leader for that? That was a complete disaster from the get-go. And then last year with Philadelphia, I mean, obviously they've improved with the new coach, but that Philadelphia team last year was a complete mess. Like they got swept by the Celtics and they were just a complete disaster in all regards. So I don't really know how much of a leader we can really say Al Horford is. Like, I think we may have overrated him. I mean, he's a good guy and everything like that. I'm not saying that, but like how much he can sort of restore order in the locker room. I don't think he's really capable of doing that to that extent because he's a nice role player, but I mean, he's also like not like, I don't know, he's not like an all-time great or like one of those types of players. He's a solid player. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to criticize. I like the guy and I guess, but yeah, I don't know. I guess if you ask me about the trade, I think it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like in general this year, like when people talk about injuries, like Kemba Walker wasn't the only one with injuries. Like right now we're seeing throughout the NBA playoffs, a lot of guys have been injured. Like LeBron James missed 2 months due to like an ankle. And I mean, he wasn't the same guy and the Lakers lost in the first round. Anthony Davis, speaking of the Lakers, also missed a lot of the series against not the Denver Nuggets, the Phoenix Suns in the first round. So, I mean, the injuries are throughout the league. So I don't think like, I mean, people who are sort of hard on Kemba for this, like, I mean, it's not not just Kemba, who's battling injury. Kawhi Leonard missed the last 2 games against the Utah Jazz, 2-2 series due to injury. So I think this is a problem throughout the league where due to like obviously the pandemic, forcing the season to end in October last year and then having the season restart so soon, like in December, like probably just over 2 months. Like I think that definitely has caused some injuries, like James Harden, Kyrie Irving, they're also injured as well. So I don't think like it's fair that not us specifically, but people sort of like going after Kemba for the injury he had. I mean, it's an unusual kind of situation for all these guys to sort of condition their bodies to be used to this type of season. So, I mean, I don't like how they sort of like use the whole like, oh, like this was a disastrous sliding because of his knee and stuff like that. I mean, throughout the league, we're seeing a lot of the superstar players getting hurt right now. So, I mean, I'm not like, I guess at the same time, I'm okay with the trade because it does create the financial flexibility. And I'm okay because I don't think Kemba, while I like him as a player, I don't think he's like the type of guy you like. He's not like the guy I'd want as a big 3 type guy, like the third guy. I think I want someone else who's a little bit like, I mean, Damian Lillard is the type of guy I really want at this point. And if I'm Brad Stevens, I'm trying to figure out how I can make that trade work. But I don't know if you have to give up Jaylen Brown, like, would you do that Jaylen Brown as part of a package for Damian Lillard? I would actually consider that because Damian Lillard is a really, really good player. Like, he is awesome. Would you do that, Damian Lillard, for Jaylen Brown?
I would, but I don't. I think it would require more than Jaylen Brown to get Damian Lillard here. I think it would probably be Jaylen Brown plus some additional role players. And Portland is looking for a new coach, I believe. And let's be honest, the Celtics are looking for a new coach too. So I just feel like maybe Brad Stevens has some idea as to who the next coach will be if he's bringing back Al Horford, like to the Celtics. Like, do you think he has some coach lined up? Because I feel like he's been in contact with probably some coaching candidates, whoever they may be, and they'll probably want to say, oh yeah, I want this player, like these players on the team for the season. Then I'd be the team coach for the Boston Celtics. Like, do you think the case?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I've heard like you've heard some rumors like Chauncey Billups. That's someone I actually like because he's a former player. He's won a championship. He won Finals MVP with the Detroit Pistons in 2004. Like, that's a winner, and that's someone who's like respected throughout the league. I think Chauncey Billups, if that's your coach, like maybe like having a veteran like Al Horford sort of work with the young guys, and then having Billups like a rookie coach sort of do that. Maybe is that what he's looking for, like a rookie coach? That's why he wants a veteran as well who can kind of pair with that. Like Horford's respected throughout the league too, so maybe is that what he's trying to do? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like, really, I think maybe their next coach should be someone who's sort of played in the league and kind of can connect to the like Tatum and Brown, because it seemed like towards the end, Brad Stevens sort of lost that like connection to the locker room, and he never played in the NBA. So maybe that's what the players are looking for nowadays, because that's sort of what goes in this league. Like, I mean, sort of like having a coach who can kind of tap into the players, like the star players, and really sort of, I mean, Steve Kerr did that with like, I guess the Warriors with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and back in the day. And so, I mean, maybe that's what he wants. Like Doc Rivers is another former player. I mean, you saw him year 1 with the 76ers. I mean, obviously we'll get to the NBA playoffs in a bit, but I mean, the 76ers are a better team than they were a year ago. And Doc Rivers is a former player. He tapped into Joel Embiid. So I think having a former player, I would say, is maybe that's what Brad Stevens is looking for, because he knows these guys pretty well now. He's coached Jason and for 4 years, Jaylen for 5 years. So he knows like what type of like environment they are. He knows them pretty well. And I think he knows the type of coach that will tap into them. I hope he does, because yeah, otherwise, but yeah, I guess I just want to quickly mention like the trade Moses Brown. Like, this is actually a pretty intriguing prospect. I mean, obviously you give up that 16th pick, but I mean, Moses Brown, from what I've heard, if he was to go in the draft like this year, he would pretty much fall in that like 15-16 range. So you ended up basically swapping that 16th pick for Moses Brown. And I guess kind of the loss, like the one that probably hurts more, is giving up Kemba for Horford. That's clearly Kemba's still the better player, but I think it's a good move in the sense like now you're able to sort of be 1 year away from getting a max free agent in free agency or trying to trade for someone like Lillard. So I kind of like the move overall, like in that context. Obviously, it's a talent downgrade, but I don't think they're done yet making moves. They're definitely not done, because Brad Stevens knows more than anyone that this roster right now is not good enough to be like more than what they were last year. It's probably worse than what they were last year. So, I mean, that which is a 7th seed. So Brad clearly knows that. And I think he's going to be working to try to figure out the next thing to do. So.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, and then there will be the draft coming up. I believe it will be next month or in August.
Yeah, but they don't have the pick anymore, but which is
Yeah,
fine. I mean,
that's true. But
yeah,
then you could still use a second round pick and grab somebody from there. Uh,
yep. I mean, Nikola Jokic, the MVP, was second round pick in 2014, I believe. So yeah, you can find gems anywhere. But anyways, yeah, that's our take on the Celtics. And I just want to quickly bring up the NBA playoffs as well. It's been a pretty fascinating series. Obviously, the Western Conference Finals beginning tomorrow. The Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Clippers. Suns are in the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2010, and the Clippers, first time ever they're in the Western Conference Finals. That was actually a very exciting series. I mean, they came back from 2-0 again. First round was against the Dallas Mavericks, but this was against the top seeded Utah Jazz. And the last two games without Kawhi Leonard, their star player. So obviously a bit of redemption from them. Like last season, the embarrassing 3-1 blown lead to Denver. Terrence Mann last night, just 39 points at a comeback. Not just like 39 points at a comeback effort, just phenomenal. Jazz like blew a 25-point lead and they lost that game 131 to 119. So, I mean, let's just start with this. Who are you picking in Suns Clippers, and like what's your prediction for that series? It's starting tomorrow.
yeah, I should add that Chris Paul will likely be out at least for the first couple of games because of COVID protocol. So if that's the case, then the Suns are already at a disadvantage to start, despite having a lot of rest after the sweep of the Nuggets. So, and I think that the early games will definitely play a factor as to how this series will go. So I'm going to go with Clippers in 7, and the Clippers will go into the NBA Finals. And I think the Suns have been a very good team. But don't get me wrong, but I think this whole like COVID protocol with Chris Paul, it couldn't have come at a worse time for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I guess I forgot about that storyline too. Chris Paul against his old Clippers team, right? The one that, I mean, continuously would usually lose in the second round and the first round. So all those years of with Lob City with him and Blake Griffin, it's kind of, that's another interesting storyline. Like, I'm actually very intrigued by this. And I guess for me, like, I mean, in the NBA playoffs, usually for the most part, I mean, I say usually because it hasn't always been the case, but usually the team with the best player wins the series. And if Kawhi Leonard plays this series, and I don't know how bad that injury is, like it looks like it could be pretty bad because he clearly had to miss two critical playoff games. So I am concerned. If Kawhi Leonard plays, I'm going to say Clippers in 7, as you say. But if he doesn't play, even with Chris Paul out, I think the Suns win this series, like Suns in 6. If Kawhi is out for a significant stretch, even without Chris Paul, I think Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, that team is ready to make a run because the Suns, like the whole, like, I mean, they've kind of historically been a pretty bad team, like since like, I mean, for a while, since 2010, really. I mean, after 2010, they've been a pretty bad team. And now they are ready to kind of wake up and really make some noise. So I think the Suns will win the series if Kawhi Leonard misses significant time, which is looking pretty likely at this point. So I mean, I don't know if he's going to be playing
But it should
tomorrow.
be. But I should add that when Kawhi was out, the Clippers did win 2 important games against a pretty good Jazz team. And
That's true. Just true.
Jazz were the #1 seed in the West. So you're talking, I mean, if you can beat the #1 seed in the West, then theoretically the Suns were pretty much as good as the Jazz. So I think that's why I'm gonna go with Clippers in 7, like regardless.
That's fair. Yeah. Status. But I feel like at this point, I don't know. Like I feel like in a whole series, like I think the Suns are now like I feel like mid-series is a little bit of adjustment you have to make. I don't know. I mean that's a valid point though. I think we'll see. But I do think Kawhi, they're going to need Kawhi to beat Phoenix because the Jazz are more kind of a defensive-minded team, but Phoenix is an offensive-minded team, and you're going to need to score. And Kawhi, you're going to need a guy like Kawhi to lock down Booker because Booker is capable of going off for 40. I mean, Paul George is a very good defender too, and so is Beverly, but Kawhi is like your main guy for that series. So I think they're going to need Kawhi to win the series. So I'll go with yeah. So we'll see what happens. I guess maybe I guess if you ask me for like I kind of want the Clippers to make it because I don't know. It'd be funny to see like the Lakers sort of a year after the Lakers kind of made fun of the Clippers for what happened. The Clippers are able to bounce back. And I also like seeing a team that hasn't won before, which is the case for Phoenix too. So for me, it's really just it's a win-win because either team makes it, I'm going to be happy for them. And I'm probably going to be cheering for them because let's talk about the East though, because let's go to that first. So afterward. So the 76ers beat the Hawks last night to force a game 7, 104-99. I think that's tomorrow. And the Bucks Nets tonight is game 7. So let's just talk about these two series a little bit. Obviously, the Sixers have kind of kind of almost choking, but they might survive because they should not be going to 7 games against the Atlanta team. So I don't know. Like, what do you think about the Sixers team? Do you think? I mean, I think they're going to win the series. I think they'll beat Atlanta tomorrow. But do you actually think this team has a chance to win win the East against Brooklyn or Milwaukee?
I personally think that the winner of the Bucks Nets series will be the representative of the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. I just think that the Bucks and Nets are at a different level right now compared to the Sixers or Hawks. The thing with the Sixers was Joel Embiid was not 100% like for a couple of games during this series, and even though he's been putting up pretty good numbers, I just don't think Joel Embiid will beat a Brooklyn team or a Bucks team. So, and while I do believe the Sixers will get through to the Eastern Conference Finals and beat the Hawks, I just don't think there'll be a match for either the Bucks or Nets.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like if Brooklyn is pretty hobbled up right now. Like, I mean, Kyrie Irving is not going to be playing tonight, Game 7 against Milwaukee, and James Harden's also pretty hobbled up as well. So that's two big things. Like, Harden will play, and he did look better. I mean, obviously KD's the one guy healthy, and that's huge for the Brooklyn. But I mean, Harden, like Game 6, 16 points, and he only scored 5 in Game 5. I mean, he was kind of like a decoy, I feel, in that game. So I mean, I think for this game tonight, I mean, so what's your pick for tonight, Bucks Nets? Do you think Milwaukee is able to win? Because this has been the series where the home team has won every game. So, I mean, it's going to be tough for me because I feel for one game, KD's probably capable of going for 50 if he needs to. And I don't know. Like, I mean, I want Milwaukee to win this series. I just have a feeling like, I don't know. They should win the series. Like, they should win tonight, but I just can't trust them. Like, they have an inability to close out these games. So, I hate to say it, but I think Brooklyn wins this game tonight against Milwaukee. I'd love to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I just think Brooklyn's going to win tonight. Like, what are you thinking about tonight's Bucks Nets game?
This is going to be a tough one to call in the sense that, both teams have been playing, like I said, they've been very good this season. And there's a reason why both these teams have made it this far. I personally just wish this was the Eastern Conference Finals, not the Eastern Conference semifinals. But if it had to be Bucks Nets, I would agree with you, Amartya. Has to be the Nets for Game 7. I mean, Kevin Durant, he is he'll, like you said, he will go for 50 and maybe if not more. I mean,
yeah, he's probably going to score. I mean, okay, let's just do this for fun. Over on under on Kevin Durant points tonight. Let's just make a prediction. How many points is he scoring tonight? I'm going with 52. I think he's going to score 52 tonight. What about you?
I don't think he'll go as high. I think he'll get about, I'm going to say 41. In the sense that, well, the Bucks or not the Bucks, the Nets are going to need everybody. Jeff Green is back, and he scored 27 off the bench.
That's true, yeah.
So you have him, and you still have Joe Harris lighting it up. And of course, James Harden is maybe not 100%, but he can at least still chip in with a few points here and there, maybe 10 to 15. Who knows, depending on how many minutes he plays. So
yeah, I mean, so we'll see. I mean, okay, so both of us have the Nets winning the series, and Kevin Durant going for at least 40 tonight. So let's see what happens. But anyways, that's our NBA take. Obviously, a lot of exciting stuff that's been going on. And even I gotta say, like, I haven't really been as into like the NBA this season. Just I think the Celtics kind of turned me off. But I'll say this Bucks Nets series, I'm actually excited for this because even like in playoff basketball, I just love it when there's two great teams going at it, and you actually don't know. Like, I mean, I expect Brooklyn to win, but you just don't know. Like, I still think Milwaukee has a chance. That's what makes these playoffs fun to watch. When there's two teams and you actually don't know the winner ahead of time, it's actually like worth watching the game to see this. So I'm excited for this game tonight. I'm actually very excited to see what happens, and we'll see what happens. But that's our NBA and Celtics take. Let's just talk about the Red Sox now. They've continued to defy expectations. Last I checked, they were beating the Kansas City Royals 5-1. I don't know if that game's gone final yet, but they've been playing well. Like, obviously, after that 18-4 loss to Toronto on Sunday, they beat the Blue Jays 2-1 the next day in extra innings. And then they win against the Braves twice, 10-8, both games in Atlanta. And then they did lose last night 5-3. I just wanted to talk about this game because Nick Pivetta, obviously he started off on a pretty good run. He was like 5-0, but he's lost the last 2 starts. And it's kind of worth noting because since MLB issued that like memo on like the whole like foreign substances and stuff like that, all that stuff that's been brought up on like doctoring the baseballs by the pitchers and stuff like that. Like we've seen like some of the Red Sox pitchers, right? Like they've sort of struggled. Like, I mean, perfect case against Atlanta, right? You win both games 10-8. The pitching allowed 8 runs. They allowed 8 runs back-to-back days. And even like Nick Pivetta, right? I mean, his on June 12th, his it was a 7-2 loss to the Blue Jays, 5 innings, 6 hits, 6 earned runs, and then 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs yesterday. Not as bad of a game because the 3 runs came from a 3-run home run he allowed. But it seems like, I don't know, like I feel like we've kind of noticed a trend, like since MLB sort of cracked down on it, like it seems like the pitching overall throughout the league has like gotten a lot worse. Like a lot of pitchers are complaining about this stuff too. So I don't know, what's your take on this whole like foreign substance that's kind of like taking over the discussion in baseball right now? Like another cheating scandal, except it's throughout the baseball league, not just one team.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it kind of shows that the pitchers are using some sort of substance to maybe get a grip on the ball, and maybe that's resulting in better offense. That's what it seems like at this point, in the sense that, oh, you're without this substance, you're not going to be able to locate the pitch exactly where you want it. It's probably going to be like a few degrees off here or a few feet up from where you were aiming, or like maybe in the dirt, whatever, what have you. So I just don't, maybe that just means more offense, and it's maybe a way for MLB to try and get some
injecting more offense, right, into the league, like injecting more offense, because like, I mean, right now it's like a strikeout heavy league, right? Because they say it's like a walk, hit, or no, it's like walk, home run, or strikeout. It seems like that's like the 3 outcomes that everyone loves right now. So, I mean, maybe that's what they're going for nowadays. Like they're trying to go for that strikeout, and everyone's trying to go for 99 miles per hour, trying to blow it by the guy instead of focusing on like go pitching for contact, right? That's what it used to be, like ground balls and stuff like that. That's not really the focus as it used to be, right? Nowadays, it's just like the batter is just trying to hit it out of the ballpark every time and stuff like that. So I think maybe that's baseball's way of trying to inject more offense, because strikeout numbers are through the roofs this season. And we've already been at 6 no-hitters through June. Today's today's the 19th, right? Yeah, I'm just June 19th. Okay, I don't think there's been a no-hitter now for like a month or so, but I'm just saying June 19th, we have 6 no-hitters. The record for most no-hitters in a baseball season is 7. So if we have 1 more no-hitter at some point, I mean, if we have 2 more no-hitters between now and the end of the season, we're gonna have a new baseball record for most no-hitters in a season. We're already like 1 shy. So maybe that, maybe now with increased offense, like you're seeing like offenses with the guys like mislocating their pitches and stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, but so yeah, I think that's the thing. Like I think it's an interesting thing for them to crack down on. I think it's good because you don't want these guys having, like, everyone has their own preferences for what to put on the baseball, right? And stuff like that. I think it's okay. I think it's okay for them to do it as long as it's like a consistent list of substances you give, saying, okay, you can put these list of substances on it, but if you put anything that's considered foreign or outside, then you can't do that. And then I think that 10-game suspension which baseball proposed is a fair one, as long as you give them a memo. And I think that baseball has done a pretty good job at least enforcing it so far, or at least telling them what they can and can't do. I think now it's going to come down to how the teams and those players react to it. Do you agree with that?
Most definitely. Like you said, it's going to be an adjustment for a period for pitchers to, I guess, find their grip without such substances. I'm not saying that all pitchers are using these substances.
I feel most of them use something. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, I think it's just some guys are just going to have to adjust to it. I mean, we'll see what happens going forward. But I just wanted to also say the Red Sox, I mean, it's been a pretty good stretch for them. They continue to, I mean, I'll say that they battle adversity. Like you lose 18-4 to Toronto. Next day you win 2-1. Like they're showing the signs of a mentally, they've already shown it throughout the season, a mentally tough team. And those are the types of teams that go on deep runs in the playoffs. Like teams that are able to bounce back from ugly losses. I mean, blow a game that they should have won, and then they're able to shrug it off and win the next day. That's a sign of a good team, a mentally tough team that's able to forget about what happened in the past, good or bad, and just focus on the moment. And they've shown that this season. And I think I mean, honestly, I mean, at the start of the season, we were just hoping that they would like not embarrass themselves again. I mean, right now they're like I mean, clearly they're better than the Yankees at this point. They swept the Yankees. And I mean, I'd say they're pretty much, I mean, they're just like a game back of Tampa Bay, I think, still. So I think for this team, like they're able to sort of battle adversity. And I think like at this time, like they need to make some roster additions to really fortify that bullpen. And I think they might need to add a starter to the rotation. And if they can do those things between now and the trade deadline, I think this is actually a real contending team for the World Series. Like, I mean, I don't think it's a stretch anymore. I mean, they have a good enough offense to do it. If they can just improve the pitching a little bit, I think this is a real World Series contender at this point. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch anymore to say that. Like, I mean, it's already June 19th, and they're still among like one of the best teams in the league at this point.
Yeah, they are. To your point, they've only lost one game since that 18-4 loss to Toronto. So they've showed that they've definitely bounced back over the last week of action. And I still question their pitching, of course, with the allowing 8 runs in a combined 16 runs in 2 games against Atlanta. Like that's a little.
Yeah, that was.
But they won 7-1 today against Kansas City after losing 5-3 yesterday. So they're definitely, I would say maybe they're back on the right track, shall we say?
I'd say so. I mean, they're pretty good with that. They're good with bouncing back. So yeah, that's our take on the Red Sox. Obviously, continuing to defy expectations and play well. And like this summer, it's going to be a good one because when the Red Sox are good, at least there's something to watch during the summertime. But in addition to the Euros and other stuff that go on and off, but yeah, so that's our take on the Red Sox. Hopefully they continue to defy expectations and play well. Now let's just talk about the Patriots really quickly. Obviously, there isn't a whole lot to talk about. There's like the mini camp that's going on. Mac Jones reportedly had a very strong mini camp. Cam Newton kind of struggled at times, and he did apparently finish strong. Like, I don't want to like put too much stock into the mini camp and stuff like that, but it is sort of like, I don't know. I mean, maybe after listening to the radio a little bit, I was kind of wondering, do you think there's more of a chance now? I mean, I guess initially, like when he's drafted, Jones is drafted, like there's like, oh, he has to learn the Patriots playbook and stuff like that. Do you think there's a chance now that like Mac Jones is your week 1 starter? Or do you still think Cam Newton is still like the week 1 starter? Like, what do you still do you still feel kind of like the same as you did before?
I do, in the sense that I believe Cam Newton will be the starter week 1, barring some serious injury. Yeah, I think with the OTAs, first of all, they're optional. So like, it's not that the players have to report to these workout sessions. I think training camp will definitely be like telling us to who's playing well, who isn't playing well, where do certain players fit on the roster. So I think training camp is really where we're going to get the majority of our answers to like who will be the starter under center. Who will be our number 1 wide receiver, like those kind of things. That's what I think training camp will be for. And then of course the preseason games will maybe give us a little hint as well, especially now that there's 1 less preseason game. So I think this will definitely be an interesting offseason in Foxborough for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just hoping. I mean, I still think Cam probably will start the season, and they play Tampa week 4. And like I think initially I was saying like I don't think Mac Jones will be starting week 4 against Tampa. Like if that's his first game, the only way I could see him starting that game is if he starts like the season, and then obviously like he's your guy from that point onward. But maybe they sort of have Cam start for the first 6-7 weeks, and I think they're going to really kind of play it by ear, right? So let's just say like they're sort of like. I think if they're like obviously go like 5-1 or something like that in the first 5, then I think you got to ride the hot hand, even if Cam isn't playing that great. You don't want to change sort of that stuff. But I think it gets interesting if they're like sort of 3-3 or something like that, and clearly like they lost games that they probably could have won if they had better quarterback play. Then I think stuff is going to get more interesting. So I still think I think Cam is your week 1 starter, but I think this year, unlike what happens last year, Mac Jones is going to actually be breathing down his neck, unlike what Jarrett Stidham couldn't do last year. So if Cam does continuously struggle in games and cause them to lose games that they probably could have won with a better quarterback play, I think Mac Jones, we'll be seeing Mac Jones this season. So that's my sort of take on that. But we'll see. I mean, we're just a quick Patriots because there isn't much to talk about for them until really August when, or I guess late July when training camp starts. I'm just going to brush on the NHL playoffs. Tampa Bay Lightning up 2-1 series against the New York Islanders, who of course beat the Bruins. I don't know. Are you cheering for the? I don't really care too much about this, but like Lightning against the Islanders. Like, are you cheering for Tampa? Because I don't know if I want to. I guess I have to cheer for Tampa just because I don't really like any New York sports team. So I guess maybe the Buffalo Bills are sort of an exception because I've like after years with the Patriots sort of just beating them up year after year. Maybe I sort of have like a little bit of a soft spot for them, but like I don't know, any New York City team I usually don't want, even if I don't really care that much about this series. Like I don't know, you're cheering for Tampa.
I would say to an extent, yes. I definitely won't be supporting Montreal against Vegas. That's for sure.
You're supporting Montreal, really?
I am
As a
not
Bruins
supporting
fan?
Montreal.
Oh, okay. That's what I was about to say. I was like, okay, yeah.
No. I said I'm definitely not against Vegas, but I think we're definitely in for these Stanley Cup semifinals. They're definitely tighter, as tight as some people imagined. Montreal are leading Vegas 2-1 in the other.
Yep.
So I think the game 3 was quite interesting, and Marc-Andre Fleury just had this.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
That led to overtime, and then they eventually lost in overtime. I mean, Fleury didn't handle the rebound in overtime, but I think these series might each go down to like a game 7 or something, and we could be in for a thrilling Stanley Cup final. And I'd like to see a Tampa Bay versus Vegas, in the sense that me being a Bruins fan, I don't want to see the Islanders in the Stanley Cup final.
Or the Canadians.
And I don't want to see the Canadians in the Stanley Cup final. So I'd like to see Tampa Bay against Vegas, just from a Boston point of view, but it's not really something that I would be very invested in, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, with the Bruins, hockey's sort of taking a back seat until October. So there are some interesting questions, like whether Tuukka will come back, but I guess we'll cover that later down the road when we have more clarity on that. So yeah, that's the quick take on the NHL playoffs and stuff of that. So, and let's just talk about the Euro now. Some 3 pretty exciting games today, especially the Portugal-Germany game. So let's start with the Hungary-France first. That was 1-1. Portugal-Germany, that was a pretty exciting game. Germany wins that 4-2, and then Spain and Poland, that was the tie, another 1-1 draw. And I mean, what was your total takeaway from that game? Obviously, the Germany-Portugal game was a really fun one to watch. I just love seeing goals and having 6 goals. I know there were 2 Portuguese own goals in that game, but that was still a very fun game to watch, just as like a fan who loves to just sort of watch soccer. And I don't really have like a team in that context, so I was glad to just sort of see like a game, just 2 of the best teams in the world like going at it and scoring. I mean, what was your takeaway from the games today?
Yeah, it shows that, well, first of all, France being the defending World Cup champions, they're not going to beat everybody. They haven't beat Hungary in a European championship for a long time. I saw a stat like going back into like the last century that they haven't won against Hungary in a European championship game, like back to when the Euro started in 1960. They dominated possession in that first half against Hungary, but they didn't score. Benzema had a good chance, but Attila Fiola from left back scoring for Hungary. And I tell you, Budapest is the only place where you have a full capacity in of all the European venues. And when you have 60,000 fans jumping up and down for a Hungary goal, I mean, it feels like it's 2019 all over again. I'll tell you that.
I mean, it was also just really amusing to watch how the players celebrated a tie on the Hungary side of things at the end, where the French players looked like distraught. Like it was a very like kind of telling sign of like the expectations for this game, where the goalkeeper for Hungary was literally like celebrating after the draw, and the French players just like looked distraught. Like even though like they tied, they didn't lose. It was just a very telling sign, like that one team clearly felt like they won the game, and the other one felt like they lost, even though officially the score showed it was a tie. It's like kind of an amusing thing, but the Portugal-Germany game, like I felt Portugal, obviously you have the Ronaldo first goal, which is a good one, but then the 2 own goals by Portugal, I mean, that was just a huge momentum killer on their side, right? I mean, yeah
most definitely. The 2 own goals were pretty much in the span of 5 minutes, and so you just really, I think the first own goal by Ruben Diaz, it seemed as though Kai Havertz would have at least got a touch on the ball, and maybe it was going in, maybe it wasn't. You'd have to see the goal for yourself to decide. But the second one, like I understand what Rafael Guerrero is trying to do. He's trying to clear it over the bar, which is always a dangerous thing to do, especially when you're running back towards your own goal. But you have to at least position your body so that you don't kick the ball towards your own net. And otherwise, that's what's going to happen. And I know it's hard to do in real time, but it's just
unfortunate.
Let the ball go. It's either a tap in for Germany, it would be 2-1 anyway, or somebody else who's better positioned for Portugal can clear it. So it's really not it's a tough situation, really. But I think the second half is when we saw the Germany of old, with Joshua Kimmich going, having a great time on the right side, and Robin Gosens scoring on that header. Portugal's defense was just all over the place, especially their wingbacks. Nelson Semedo couldn't offer anything on the.
Yeah, he struggled today. Yep.
Yeah, he did. I will say that the game could have been a lot more interesting if Renato Sanchez scored. When it was 4-2, he hit the post.
Oh, the post, yeah. Oh, that was unfortunate for Portugal. But yeah, I mean, I guess both teams are still alive in the hunt. I mean, Germany losing 1-0 to France the first time. Portugal did beat Hungary 3-0. So, I mean, now Portugal plays France, rematch of 2016, the Euro final, and Germany plays Hungary. So, going to be an interesting set of games coming up. And I guess let's just quickly talk about the last one, Spain, Poland, 1-1. Obviously, this isn't the Spain team from 2008 through 2012 with 2 Euro championships and a World Cup. But I guess, I mean, today, 1-1, I guess can't complain too much, right? Given how they've sort of played recently.
Well, the thing with Spain is they definitely should be doing a lot better than this. They had a 0-0 draw against Sweden first game. So this is now 2 points from 2 games for Spain, which is not what you want to see, at least from a Spanish point of view. So they should have won because Gerard Moreno missed a penalty right after it was 1-1, after Robert Lewandowski scored for Poland. It was a great finish, by the way, from Lewandowski.
Oh, that was terrific. I mean, that's just vintage Lewandowski. I mean, that's how good he is. I mean, just classic. I'm not surprised. Like, is anyone surprised that he was the one who scored for Poland at this point? Like, yeah.
And then, but I think Morata should have scored, even if Moreno missed the penalty. The rebound came straight to Morata after the penalty hit the post. And I know it's a quick reaction for Morata, but he should be hitting the target, let's be honest. But I think Spain just, like you said, this is not the Spain of old. I mean, there isn't much goals on this Spain team, and that's really been the case since David Villa and Fernando Torres have left the Spanish national team. And it's quite unfortunate to see to really see the decline of this national team. Even a change in coach, like from 2016 when Vicente del Bosque left. Now it's Luis Enrique. So, I mean, there are a lot of groups. I mean, especially the Portugal-Germany group. That group is wide open. The Spain group is wide open. Italy have already qualified. So have the Dutch, and so have Belgium. So there's still a lot to play for for the remaining round of 16 teams. And now we're approaching the last round of group games, and it'll be quite the finish to see who goes in and who has to go home.
Definitely. Yeah. Going to be an interesting set of games coming up, obviously, with the group stages nearly done. And then we go into the fun part, the knockout stages, where it's win or you go back, win or go home. So we'll see what happens going forward. But that's going to be it for now, like for the CV update. Obviously, it was great being back after a 2-week hiatus. I'll be back again. Hopefully, Rohan will be back next week too, and Ujan as well. But in the meantime, that's going to be it. I hope everyone has a great rest of your Saturday. Enjoy Father's Day tomorrow with your family, your parents, and all your loved ones. And we will be back again next week. Until then, stay safe and have a good time overall.